Hello everyone, welcome to Oracle Fusion HCM sessions. Today we will check about the basic yet a very important concept. This is a basic concept because what we define it here, it's going to be applied throughout the HCM application, which is a managed enterprise HCM information. So this is used to default certain data and then, if we want to set up certain configurations, we would be able to do it here so that this gets applied globally. How many other legal employers the organization has. So for everyone, these details gets deployed. There is another level also. There's two level basically. One, what we define it at the enterprise level, and the other one, legal entity level. So if I define anything at the legal entity, the same details, if I define it at the legal employer level, then that is locally, like in the legal employer level itself, it's going to get applied. So if there is some details at the enterprise and there is another details at the legal employer, then what is available at the legal employer level takes the precedence and that gets applied to all the employees in the legal employer. So if there is nothing that you define it at the legal employer level, only if it is defined at the enterprise, then that would hold good for everyone in the enterprise. So it's globally. So what we define in the enterprise HCM information, it's going to be have a global impact. Now, let's go to the managed enterprise HCM information. So here manage enterprise HCM information. I did in the global search. So now here, let's see what are all the details that we could provide here. If you have noticed, I did not find any global search. So this is the enterprise that is defined in my shared instance, the demo instance. Here, we could provide certain description of my enterprise, giving out certain details about my organization, like what is the enterprise name, the status has to be active so that this gets started. And the action reason, the local address, these are some additional fields which are created so that if the organization has a certain specific needs, so that also could be captured in here. And this is where the setup for the configuration for defaulting, for applying certain logic and rules gets started. So here it's about the workday information, which means what would be my start and end time, which is going to be applied throughout the organization. So if I define anything at the workforce assignment or the schedule, workforce schedule, if I define it, and I say certain staff have a different work schedule. For some employees, I don't assign any work schedule. In such case, they don't, or in the enterprise, while hiring also, I don't define their working timings. In such case, what we define here is going to have uh, that is what is going to be applied for the employee who doesn't have any working time. So I'll say 9 is my start time, and then 6 o'clock is my end time. So what is the standard working hours? Standard working hours would be applied based on standard working hour frequency. So I say weekly, I want everyone to work 40 hours is my standard working hours. If I don't give it at the time when I'm hiring, so some staff would have 30 hours, some would have for 50. So, but globally it's going to be 40 because I have defined it here. So I'll say it's based on weekly. I could define it based on other frequencies as well. What would be the annual working duration and the duration units that would also be defined. And coming to our next concept in enterprise information, here are the few important fields. Here, what we say is for the worker number generation method, we also give it here because there are certain worker number generation method we have already discussed in other class. So this it's going to be a optional choice for an organization, optional. Uh, so if in case the organization opt to use the worker method or the worker number, then how should that get generated? Are you going to generate it manually, or are you going to generate based on the global sequence like what we have with the person number also? The person number in HCM system, HCM cloud, is applied globally. You cannot have it based on legal employer. So a person is hired, then throughout all the legal employer, they would have the same person number. But if you want a different worker number based on the legal employer, then you could choose the legal employer based sequence. If not, you could choose the global employer sequence. It's a global sequence, like what we have it for the person number. Whereas in EBIS, if you see the person number generation method is not going to be applied globally unless if it is not opted. But here, the person number, it is mandatory that you have to choose it to apply it based on global level. So if the organization is opting for the worker number as well, then they could choose how it has to be generated. If while hiring they want to do it manually, they could do manually as well. Next comes about the employment model. So this is also one of the important concept. So when you are having a pre-initiation level or the phase, you have to get the clarity from the clients to understand what is the structure of their organization. Based on that, you have to identify what employment model would suit them well, because we have four options. I mean, we have at employment model, we have two options. Let's go back to the PPT. Mhm. So employment model, we have a two-tier model and three-tier model. Firstly, if anyone asks you what the employment model is, the model which consists of three attributes, which is a work relationship, assignment, and then employment terms. Work relationship is a relationship between the employer and the legal employee. The legal employer and the employee, what we have a connection, whether I'm working as an employee with the employer or a contingent worker or non-worker or depending worker. So there are some relations that I have with the organization. So that is what is a work relationship. So once I have a relationship, I got to have an assignment. Because if I'm just lying down here without any assignment, that doesn't make sense. So I should have some roles and responsibility. Even the pending worker also, they would not, they may not have hired yet, but they would be assigned with some roles and responsibility, some assignment. So the employment model should have the work relationship and assignment for it to work. So these two are mandate, which comes under two type. So there is two components, work relationship and then assignment. And these sums up to make a two-tier model. Whereas if you also have an employment terms, which means there are certain attributes which is going to remain same across the assignment. Like he is a full-time employee, he works on 8 hours. We will consider an example. An employee is hired as a delivery manager. Okay. He is a senior level delivery manager and he has got some assignment based on his role. He's working hours, everything is there. But I say he's shared across different assignment. Okay, he has a multiple assignment, not just a delivery manager. He has got other roles as well. In such case, if I decide, okay, there are multiple assignment, but I want to enforce certain information has to be same. Okay, like being a full-time, part-time, being a like having a what is the working hours. So all this information, if you want to enforce it to remain same across the assignments, then you could choose a three-tier model and have an employment terms as well. So this way you define certain employment term details, and this is going to remain same if a person has multiple assignment also. So this way, we will be able to identify whether an organization needs a two-tier and three-tier. So for them to understand what a two-tier and three-tier, you must explain these three components. Only then they would be able to uh, decide, okay, this is what I need, two-tier or three-tier. There is something like employment terms. Then we will go ahead with the three-tier. If they say, okay, there isn't anything, there is any such conditions as employment terms, I'll go ahead with the two-tier. Then we will, it gets easier for us to decide what model they wanted. And in the two-tier model also, like I have read in certain document, this isn't official yet, it's under progress. Three-tier model probably is going to get deprecated or the functionality is going to change. The model we have it now, so it probably is going to change from 25B. But yeah, the much updates has to be received yet. So now we will discuss about the two-tier model options that we have. So let's not let's not go in detail with the three-tier model. In the two-tier model, we have again four options to choose. If an employer say that they have a condition where an employee would have only a single work relationship and then single assignment. In such case, I would say I ask them to go with the single assignment model. If they say there is a single assignment, but there is some contract information to be captured, like what is the contract start date, what is the contract end date while hiring, I need all this contract type. So in this case, we will say we will choose a single assignment. We will go with contract, single assignment with contract. If they say there is a multiple contract details to be captured, we'll say single assignment with multiple contract. Or if they say no, there could be a multiple assignment in a work relationship, then we will ask them to go ahead with the multiple assignment. So based on how, if they have a legacy system, we will be able to understand from that system as well, like how employees are given their assignments. So accordingly, we will choose the employment model. So that needs to be defined at the enterprise. If anything to be overwritten, that can be defined at the legal entity as well. Now, going ahead, if we choose the entire model, should the employment terms be overwritten at the assignment? So that we could say. So certain like what attributes will be shared across assignment that you define. But if you want to allow them to override at the assignment, then we will choose this as yes. If we choose two-tier model, then we don't have to do anything here. People group flex field structure. This is a key flex field. It's one of the flex field. What people group flex field is, it's applied for global HR. If you go to the manage key flex fields, there is a key flex field for global human resource, which is a people group flex fields. So that is it's a way of categorizing an employee. There is whatever delivered method. If that is not enough for you to categorize the staff, for adding an additional security or for allowing for creating certain eligibility profile based on the other categories, then you could create a people group flex fields. So it's a way of grouping people in your organization. So if you choose that, you have to define the structure and structure instances in the people group flex field. That structure instances that you could select here. So that's going to be applied when you're hiring an employee. And salary level, like what level you wanted to have the salary structure defined. So we will have it as an assignment, but most cases. What is the person language that you choose globally should be applied that you could choose. If a country is from Middle East countries, then they would go ahead with another language. Based accordingly, you could choose the language here. And then person number generation method, which is already discussed in one of the course where we had discussed about the worker number. The person number, like I said, it's going to be globally. You don't see this field or the setup to choose at the legal entity level. So it has to be chosen at the enterprise level itself. Here you have an option to say that you could create it manually, or if you want to do it automatically, whether upon submission or before the submission, prior to the submission. You could choose that option. And then what is the initial person number also? If it is getting generated automatically, you can choose it. So upon submission, upon final save, prior to submission, upon final save, we know the difference. If you are not sure how the generation method actually happens, you could go and refer that course and see what is the differences in this method. And coming to a duplicate check, that is when you're hiring a staff, if you want system to validate based on certain fields you provide. Like you say, if you don't want the duplicate records to be created, then you add this validation. And based on what you want the validation. So there are certain grouping we have based on this combination you could select. So there's a national ID alone where the national ID you could choose and say, if there is a national ID duplicated when I'm trying to hire an employee, you give me a warning or an error saying that, okay, I should not mention, system should not allow me to add another duplicate record. So this way there are other combinations like full name, national ID, birth date, last name, everything you have got, gender. So you could select it. This currency support information if the organization supports for multiple currencies, like US has a multiple currency, or there is a conversion also. In the financial reporting, how do you want to convert it? So that you, based on the legislation, you provide this details. And user and role provisioning information. This is like when a user account is getting created, I mean, when you're hiring an employee, should you create the user account automatically or you have to explicitly create them manually? So you could select that. If you say none, there are three options here, which is both person and party users and none. Party users are nothing but if you have a financial or a procurement supply chain management, there would be a suppliers as well. So if you want to choose, they are called to be as a party users. So even for them and create it, if you want the user accounts to be created automatically, you could select this option. So mostly we choose as a both person and the party users. And user account role provisioning. This is like once the employee is hired, uh, the role provision has to happen automatically. And it has to happen for both party users as well as the person. Person is nothing but the employees, the usual employees, contractors, pending workers. So for both of them, if you want to automatically generate this, you can create this, you can select this option. And user account maintenance as well. This is the same option that we have got. If you want to create it for the terminated workers as well, you load some terminated workers through HTL. And if you want to have the user account created for them, you can select it as yes. You can choose to select no as well. If you, I mean, those actives, those accounts will be inactivated because they're terminated workers. But if you want their accounts to be created, you can still choose an option. Let's go ahead with the next option, global payroll element information. Thus, if you want to have payroll module integrated, then we would be able to choose this. What is the default legislative data group and their element, everything will be selected here. And then US balance definitions this is also for the US legislation specific. This is going to be used. This mostly is when the payroll is module is integrated. We get to choose this. And the position synchronization configuration. That is when you select a position, like when you're creating a position itself, you define the assignment, other assignment details as well. So there is some position created for that. What should be the job? Everything you create, job, create letter, everything you select full time, part time, department, manager. And when you select this enable position synchronization, you can choose the fields, all the attributes. So based on what you choose while hiring also, as soon as you select a position and you say synchronization as yes, allow synchronization as yes, then these fields, whatever it is checked here, that gets defaulted. The value gets defaulted based on what you have defined the position, under manage positions. So if you want that feature to be enabled, you could use it. And you say allow override at assignment. If you choose this, it means that there is some defaulted values based on the position I selected, but I wanted to override as well. So there should be an option for me to override. If you select this, the override will be allowed. If not, it will not. Employment configuration options also we have. This is also quite important configurations. Future dated record validation. If I select it as error, warning, and none, none means what is future dated record validation is if there is any person who has a future dated some assignments added. And if you are trying to make any changes while there is a future dated record, should the person allow it? Should the system allow it? Or should this throw a warning message and still allow it? Or it should stop them from not making any changes if there is a future dated records. So that option you could choose here. And validation for existing subordinate termination, which means that if there are, while you terminating a person who has a subordinates, okay, should you still allow them to get terminated easily, or you should give a warning message saying that, okay, there is a subordinates of the staffs. Uh, Please get them reassigned to some other manager. So this should system only say this warning and then still allow you to submit the termination, or should you keep it as error? No, you don't allow it for a termination of a staff who has a subordinate. So let them be reassigned and then you grant them to submit the termination transaction. If that is the option, you can choose error. Mostly it's going to be error and warning. And then approve a region collapsed. This functionality, I'm not very much sure what it is for. We have an option to choose yes or no. This remains to be checked how it's functionally is going to work. Then you have a seniority date, enterprise seniority date, whether you have to default it as soon as you hire a staff or you have to do it explicitly. Okay, that option you could choose. Mostly it's going to be yes. That means when you hire a staff, their first hire date is going to get default as the seniority date. And if you are integrating with the recruiting, then you choose that this option. In this option, we have these many options. So if ORC is integrated, then we get to choose accordingly what values we need. This automatically convert the pending workers. This mostly, if you want the pending workers to automatically convert without manual intervention, then you could go ahead and choose it as yes. Okay, by default, it will select it, take it as no, unless you say, okay, I want to automatically convert them. Okay. So unless this setup is not done here, you cannot convert the pending worker to employees or any other worker type if you don't define them here. HCM flow and document type mapping. It is like for certain HCM transactions. What is if you want to restrict certain document types? Okay, I'm just adding an assignment. So if there is any document records, what is the document types you wanted to permit? So that is what it is. If such restriction has to be adopted, then you could define it and select it respective document types. And moving ahead, position hierarchy configuration. This is also something important. If see what we select here, position hierarchy, this is majorly for based on certain positions. Like we define what is the parent or the child of that position. So then, let's say for a manager hierarchy, there is a person position A, and then there is a manager there. So for person position A, there's already a defined position B as child. When someone is hired in a position B, then whoever is in position A would be their manager. So it is basically to set up a managerial hierarchy. With this position tree also, if you use, this is both are for the security purpose. To add the security in the system, we use it. But if you use position tree, it is going to be if the structure of your organization is more complex and there should be a limited access and the security has to be more tight, then we make use of a position tree. It's based on it has a version control as well. So whereas there is a limited security that we could apply using the HCM position trees. So what we define it under manager manage position, so that all can be used here. So here the editing business objects, if you want to edit them, then you could choose this option. By default, it is going to be no. Workforce structure configuration, that is two workforce structure, job and position. How should their effective dates, default start date should be? What is their evaluation system to be by default? So these are for the jobs and then positions. What should be their job code? How should that get generated? Like we have the same option as person number generation method for them also. And what should be the initial position code, job code, so everything. If there is a future dated job records, should you allow the changes on the manager position? So all this you could select it. Workforce structure, minimum search characters. Like if I say, if you're searching for a job or organization, great. You have to, if there are multiple jobs in organization, if the this is usually for used for the large organization having a large data. You say, okay, at least 3 characters you keep, at least 2 characters you keep, at least 1 character. So based on this, you could decide, okay, how the search condition would be applied. Enable transaction security. This is for adding, you have a transaction console where you could see all the HR transactions. So if you enable this and you define, there is a manage transaction security profile. There, if you could define certain transaction security profile and add it to the job roles and then add it to the data roles, you assign it to the user. So that user would be able to see only certain transactions. So this allows the limited access at the transaction console. If not, if you don't enable this by default, it's selected as it considers as no, which means whoever has the access for the security console, so not security console, transaction console, based on that, they would be able to see all the transactions. So if you want to restrict certain HR transaction only for certain users based on their uh, security profiles, then you could make use of this enable transaction security. Here, this is a department tree configuration where you are going to add an extra layer of security similar to what we have for the position trees. So if there is any department trees, you would be able to choose them here. So that was about manage enterprise HCM information. What were all the restriction? What we could default? How the position synchronization can be done? How the validation could be applied? Everything globally, what we could do is explained here. Now let's go ahead and quickly check about the legal entity, what we could do. So here you have a search page. You have to, if there are multiple legal entities, you could see it. Even if there is one legal entity also, you have to search that legal entity and select them. So I'll just go ahead and select this legal entity. So here the payroll statutory unit is enabled, which means that you see this tab. If not, you don't see this tab. Okay. So in this payroll statutory unit, you can assign the legislative data group and certain payroll details also you could provide. So here also you have a workday information, like I was saying, you could define the stuff, working hours, timing, what is the minimum, minimum retirement age, maximum retirement age, minimum working age. So all this you could see at the legal employer level alone. You cannot define this at the enterprise level. Its salary level is already defined in the enterprise as assignment. You need not have to give anything. Worker number also, it's all given there. So if it's only anything to be applied specifically to this legal employer, then you define that. People group flex field structure, it wasn't there, but it is out here. It's a custom people group flex fields created. What is the employment model? So I say employment model to be applied for this is to tier multiple assignment, whereas enterprise level I had given it as a single assignment. So only for this assignment, you would be able to go hire a staff, add multiple assignment for them. Okay, there would be a provision to add the assignment so that when you do an update. So this is a legal employee struct details. Even you have a position synchronization here as well. So by default, it is using the enterprise, but if there is anything that you want to override, you could do it here. And the legal employer information, what would be the legal employer notice period details. So that if you want, you could define it here. And anything with respect to the registration number, identity number, if you want to give it, you can give them here. So that was about the entity enterprise HCM information, the legal entity HCM information. We'll meet ahead with another concept. Until then, thank you.